Hey everyone, and welcome to Ricky's Rockin' Reviews. I wanted to talk to you guys about The Taxidermied Man by Jacy Morris. This is a 60-page short story, but every page in here packs a heavy punch. This is a story about a Native American man named Bud, and he has early onset dementia, and this causes severe depression and suicidal thoughts. And he also has this idea that he can still remain with his wife if he were able to off himself and get his body taxidermied so that he can always be with her. And he can also prevent the serious downgrade in mental capability and the forgetfulness. He can save his wife from that pain. So he decides to do this, and you begin the story in the final hours of his life. He makes an agreement with the taxidermist, and right away it's really heavy hitting, because it turns out it's almost as if he is denied an afterlife, because as soon as he offs himself, as soon as he deletes himself, he can start to see through his own dead body. And being stuck in this body that doesn't move, and it's kind of freaky, he's able to experience the whole taxidermy process, where his skin is semi-replaced with plasters and his organs are evacuated from his body. It's really freaky because he ends up still feeling this pain, and he can't call out to anyone to help him. He can't scream. He just has to endure it. And so it starts off pretty intense. And from this point forward, we kind of see how he never discussed this with his wife. He's made I would say he's made a pretty big error, because his wife is actually really freaked out about this agreement that she learns about. Obviously, she's distraught with the loss of her husband, but also now she has to deal with his stuffed body, and it's something that kind of repulses her. And this story goes into some really crazy places. I was really surprised by the sheer expanse of time that Bud is able to witness. I can say that one of the most prominent things about his new taxidermied body is how he is always standing at attention, if you catch my drift. That was one of the things he wanted, to ensure he still had a working member, so that his wife can still find pleasure in his body. It's crazy stuff, but this ends up becoming a big detriment, because he ends up, without giving too much away, after the first phase of his life, where, like I said, a lot of time passes. So after he is no longer owned by his wife, I should say, after many years pass, he finds his way down to Mexico, down to the south of Mexico, where there is like a depraved bar, where he becomes like a main attraction. If you know anything about like donkey shows or anything like that, that is essentially what Bud is forced to partake in. And he gets to witness so many broken people. One of the girls that works there ends up becoming a girl that he ends up becoming a girl that he considers like his second serious relationship in life. And it's pretty wild, because he had this idea of always being there for his wife. He never thought that he would remain present in the way that he is. After this first phase of his life, he is forced to participate in sexual acts that are pretty disgusting. And like I said, with broken people, and all the while thinking that he is betraying his wife. One of the significant things that Bud ends up witnessing is all the patrons that come into the bar. And it spans several years that he is there. And as the years pass, the patrons become more and more depraved, and just seriously lacking grace and humanity. Once he finds his way out of this place is where the story takes like this crazy turn. As you can see through his eyes here, it almost looks a little cosmic, That's the only hint I would kind of give. The author had a lot to say about the future outlook of man. And although I would push back on this idea that we start to lose our humanity, I can definitely see how this can be a warning about where we might be headed if we don't incorporate a little bit of grace in our lives. If we don't get back to our roots and trying to find actual human connection, we rely a lot on technology, and this distance that it kind of creates between us. It can also lead us to becoming more violent, as well as the way we fight for resources and the way we decide to govern ourselves. We have a lot of problems. And in a way, I can see how the author is using Bud's situation where he is stuck in his own body and is forced to watch the downfall of humanity, the progression of failures that lead us into becoming the scum of the earth in this world. I can see how you can compare that with the early indigenous people and the Native Americans. If you look at where they were before anyone had messed with them, to now, we see a total different way in how life is lived, and a loss of culture, a loss of beliefs. Like I said, that's a really powerful warning. Now, what I really appreciated about this story was the exponential growth in the way that time was passing. We see some really huge concepts be tackled, and the concepts get bigger and bigger up until the very end. And the most impressive part was that the author was able to retain the humanity of Bud even after living so many years and being in a completely different state. You see him in this afterlife that just won't end. It almost feels like forever. And I thought it was just really powerful, something to think about. And now I want to read an excerpt for you guys so you can get a bit of a taste for what the prose is like and the flavor of the book. Sometimes, if he was lucky, he would recall lying in bed with her, breathing in the scent of her skin. Years passed in this way, and the shroud that covered him collected dust, which he could smell through the aging cloth. His world was a world of darkness, though his ever-open eyes tried to spot any signs of life. Occasionally, he heard sounds, the skittering of creatures in the darkness. Cockroaches, maybe mice, but they didn't talk to him or seem interested in him at all. He wasn't even worth a rat's curious nibble. For all intents and purposes, he was completely forgotten. His spirit trapped in a body made of plaster, stuffing, and wooden supports. If glass eyes could weep, his cheeks would have been stained with salt deposits, a crystallized tattoo of grief. Then one day, all that changed. There's definitely a nihilist bent to this story and the themes, but I really felt like the author was able to handle Bud as a person and still make everything that was going through his mind believable, especially with such vast passages of time. And I thought the ending was really well done, really interesting, and it left you with one final gut punch that was almost bittersweet in a way. And I really encourage everyone to read this. This is my first Jacy Morris story, and I'll definitely be reading more. I also have Killing the Cult here by him, and I'm really excited to read this. It's about this man who's trying to save his daughter from a cult, but he has some secrets of his past, which kind of becomes a big hurdle and interferes with how he's going to go about and save his daughter, which sounds really, really interesting. I would like to thank Jacy for sending me these in exchange for an honest review. Guys, I really appreciate you watching. If you can comment down below about what you think about these concepts, or if you're interested in reading this story, or if you have read this story. I'd also really appreciate it if you would subscribe and hit the like button. I'm currently reading Metaxism by Ari Holding. This is from Cliff Cave Books. And this is like a Lovecraftian science experiment gone wrong type of story, which I'm really enjoying. So this is one of my future reviews that is going to be out soon. Thanks, guys.